Birds are quite noisy today. Hello and welcome to another Car Obsession vlog. Now, I've been doing Car Obsession for almost 2 years now, and throughout that time there's one topic I've never really spoken about until today, and that is my car history. So I thought, why not do a video today, talk about my car history, and yeah, without further ado, let's do this. It's very cold today, so I think it's about time I got in the car. Oh, it's freezing. Oh, Struth. Oh. Right. Oh. Road's quite busy today. I could be here a while. So let's kick things off. So I've been driving for over 6 years now. Passed my test in 2011, passed first time, don't you know. Only 3 minors, which I'm quite pleased with. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be here quite some time. Let me turn the indicator off for the time being, because I know it's going to become annoying. Mind you, having said that, I'm free, I'm good to go. It's been a while since I've driven via Ibiza, and I have to say, it is quite pleasant to be back. Anyway, on to business. So, my very first car, what's that rattling noise? It's quite annoying. Hopefully you can't hear that, because that's going to be annoying for you as well, but it's a rattling coming from. Damn, I thought I'd fixed it. There's a rattling coming from the dashboard. But it is an old car. Anyway, my very first car was a 2001 Fiat Punto ELX, which I think was one of the mid-range models. I'm not too sure, don't quote me on that. I bought it for £900. It had 48,000 miles on the clock, and it drove okay. It had a 1.2 litre naturally aspirated petrol engine, which offered about 60 or 70 brake horsepower, so not a great deal. It was mated to a 5-speed manual gearbox, and one thing I can remember about the car was that the gear lever was really big. It was a really tall gear lever. It looked quite old-fashioned and quite comical. So I had that for about 9 months, and it was fine. And then after that time, it just kept breaking. Now, a lot of people refer to Fiat as fix it again tomorrow. And okay, the newer cars are much more reliable, but my Punto, after about 9 months or so, like I say, I just kept paying out to fix it. And bearing in mind, I paid £900 for the car, as I mentioned a few moments ago. It got to a point where I thought, if I keep on like this, I'm going to spend more in repairs than I did on the car. So it just got a little bit silly. So about after a year or so of owning the car, I traded it in for something new, a brand new car no less, which is quite exciting at the time. But before I cross onto that, let me talk to you more about how the Punto drove. Now, when it did work, it was actually quite good fun to drive. Okay, it didn't have a lot of power, so 0 to, oh, just got to mind a cyclist, he's just gone into the road. 0 to 60 came eventually, and the top speed was just under 100 miles per hour. But because the car was light, so it didn't have a great deal of safety features, it didn't have, well, any features really. It had a cassette player, front electric windows, it might have had rear electric windows, I can't remember, and that's pretty much about it. It didn't really have much in the way of equipment. But because it was a light car, weighed less than 900 kilograms, you could have a decent amount of fun with it. When it was, like I say, when it was working, it was, you know, it was quite pleasant to drive. But like I say, it got to a point where it was just becoming silly. Oh, I forgot how firm, actually hard, the suspension is in this car. Oh, right. Oh, God, there goes my spine. So, yeah, it got to a point where the Punto just didn't really seem viable anymore, so I traded it in. So originally I test drove a brand new Peugeot 208, and that was disappointing purely because the seats were so comfortable. They were like armchairs. They really were nice to sit in, but all of that was ruined by the rather jiggly and lumpy ride. So I thought, oh, I don't quite fancy that. Straight after that, I test drove a Renault Clio, and the ride was a lot better. And I thought, you know what, let me go for this. So I ended up buying a oh god, how big is that speed hump? Cool, that makes table mounting look tiny. My word. I bought a Renault Clio Dynamique TomTom, which was at the time one of the mid-range models. So as the name suggests, it came with sat-nav, TomTom sat-nav of course, which was good, but it was quite slow. So sometimes it'd be like, turn left, and you'd already gone past for turning, which is quite annoying. That was also fitted with a naturally aspirated 1.2 litre petrol engine, which produced around 75 brake horsepower. So it did have more power than the Punto, only a little bit, but it was a heavier car. So that weighed, that was around, well, I did a bit of research, but that weighed around 1,050 kilograms, which is lighter than I expected, because when I drove it, it felt like a bit of a heifer lump. The power, the engine, it didn't really have a lot of power. It had no guts, and although it was a comfortable car to be in, I have no idea where I'm going, by the way. Let's go left, see what's down here. Although it was a comfortable car to be in, and it had all your mod cons, so it had the navigation, as I mentioned a few moments ago, it had Bluetooth, cruise control, air conditioning. Did it have front and rear electric windows? I'm not too sure. I also put the rear parking sensors on as an optional extra as well, and I also had the Guardex put on, which helps to preserve the paint, and then I had the inside treated with Guardex as well, so that helps to protect the interior as well from any spills or anything of that nature. I also had the paint was optional. That was, I have to try and remember the official colour. I believe it was diamond black, and it was a pearlescent colour. It looked really nice, and that was complemented with 16-inch gunmetal alloy wheels, which are quite nice. 16s or 15s? I'm pretty sure they were 16s. Actually, no, I think they were 15s. They were 15 or 16, and it looked really, really good. Now, I don't actually have many photos of it, sadly, because it wasn't really a car I enjoyed driving. After 3 months of owning the Clio, I soon became bored of it, purely because it had no power. It wasn't that much fun to drive. It just felt like a heavy car. So for example, I'm about to go onto the 817, which I think I'm going to avoid because there's lots of roadworks. But when I took the Clio onto fast roads such as this, or onto the motorway, I had to plan every overtake, and that became quite taxing and quite tiring. One thing I love about the Ibiza is that if I want to overtake on the motorway, so I'm just watching out for the traffic light, if I want to overtake on the motorway, just check my mirrors, yep, and away I go. Whereas with the Clio, it almost became a military operation. Like, oh, okay, right, so I'm doing so many miles per hour now, right, how far is that car behind me? And when you're driving a long distance, or you're doing a long journey, that becomes a pain in the arse, to be frank. Right, away we go. Let's go down here, shall we? So yeah, the Clio was a good car, and when I look back, I think it was good value for money, because I bought it on PCP, so I paid monthly for it, of course. And after I had added the options onto it, it was about £13,000 back in 2012, and to me that seemed to be good value for the equipment I got with it. But yes, like I say, after 3 months I became bored with the car, and all I wanted to do was to get out of the PCP as quickly as I could. But that became rather difficult because the car lost half its value in 1 year. Now, unfortunately for me, not too long after I bought my Clio, the new Clio came out, which obviously made the depreciation even worse. So I just want to give it oh, that's so juvenile, but also rather good fun. So yeah, so I wanted to get rid of the Clio, but I couldn't because it was upside down. And for those of you that, not very good rev match that time. Rev matching, I find rev matching is a lot easier in the MX-5 than it is in this car, but that's another story. For those of you that don't know what I mean by the car was upside down, I don't mean that it had rolled onto its roof. What I mean was that the finance was upside down. So basically, what I owed was more than what the car was worth. So if I wanted to get out of the agreement, not only would I have to give the car back, of course I'd have to give it back, but I would have to pay I'd have to pay whatever difference was remaining. And A, I didn't have the money to do that, and B, that's not something I was prepared to do. I didn't want to pay to get out of the car, even though I was quite desperate to get out of the Clio. So in the end, I ended up keeping that for about 2.5 years, I think, maybe a little bit more. In the end, what I did is I took out new car finance to buy a new car, to buy this car, and to also clear the remaining finance on the Clio. Now, my disclaimer is I personally wouldn't recommend that. To take out more car finance to clear old car finance, I wouldn't recommend that personally. But at the time, I did it because I felt it was right, and like I say, I was desperate to get out of my Clio. So yeah, so that brings me on quite nicely onto the Ibiza FR. Hopefully by now you'll know a good chunk about this car. So you have to excuse me, this is actually quite a good road. On the brakes, a little bit of tyre squeal. I quite enjoyed that. I might go back and do that again actually. So yes, that brings me on to the Ibiza, and hopefully you know all about the Ibiza. But for those of you that are quite new to the channel, hello, thank you for joining me. Hopefully you will subscribe, and if you have subscribed, thank you very much. So hopefully you know about the car, but to summarise, this is a 2006 Seat Ibiza FR. It's got a 1.8 litre turbocharged petrol engine, so it's the first turbocharged car I've owned, and in fact it's the only turbocharged car that I've owned. It has 148 brake horsepower with 220 newton meters of torque. I believe that's right. That is off the top of my head. I've got to rev match. Never mind. 0 to 60 comes, well, I've looked at a few different websites and I keep getting different figures, but it's around 8.3 seconds, give or take. But I have been able to get this to 60 in 7.1 seconds, which I was quite pleased with. That was up at Santapod last year. Top speed is around 134 miles per hour. And on paper, it doesn't seem that quick, but when you get in it and go for a drive, you'll realise that it is quite rapid. And of course, I have my Mazda MX-5. Now, that will most likely be up for sale soon, but I'm trying to work out my finances to see if there's a way that I can keep it. But hopefully, again, by now you know all about my Mazda MX-5 or Maserati Levante. First one I've seen in the wild. Looked quite good actually. Yeah, hopefully you know all about my Mazda MX-5 now, but I have the Mark II Sport, which is limited edition, not to be confused with the Mark 2.5 Sport, which isn't limited edition. My car has got a 1.8 naturally aspirated petrol engine, and that has 148 brake horsepower with 162 newton meters of torque. And that's a really fun car. I've done quite a few videos with the MX-5, so if you haven't seen them, be sure to check them out. But yeah, that's my car history. I don't want to ramble on for too long, although I do like to waffle on. But yeah, to summarise, First car, Fiat Punto, quite fun to drive when it worked, but most of the time it was broken. Then I had the Renault Clio, which was comfortable. It had lots of nice features, but it was just too slow. The Ibiza, of course, which I'm driving right now, and having a fair amount of fun in, if I'm going to be honest with you, and my Mazda MX-5, which may be departing soon. So yes, that is my car history. Far from extensive, far from glamorous, but I thought, you know what, I still think that some people would be interested, stupid pigeon, almost flew into the car. I still think some people would be interested in hearing about the cars I've owned in the past, and of course, the cars that I own now. But yes, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you ever so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't done already, please subscribe for more car obsession.